Welcome back to One Winning Pod, guys. I'm sorry, I just want to come out and say it. My score prediction for last week, completely wrong. All right, I was totally surprised, just like the rest of you. Well, or maybe not the rest of us. I don't know. You guys picked the win, but
not like that.
Absolute dominance, man. The Ravens absolutely destroyed the Lions, 38-6. It was definition beatdown. It was incredible game to watch. Incredible game to watch live. I'm so happy to be wrong. How you guys doing?
Awesome. This is what we went to see from the Ravens, right? We know that this offense has this ability. We know this defense, they've been stellar all year, but man, it was a fun game. I was out of town last week, and while the game was going on, so I wasn't able to see the game live, but I was walking around the Chicago Museum of Industry. Excellent museum if you're ever in Chicago. Highly recommend it. They recently renovated it. It's got a ton of cool stuff. But yeah, so I was walking around there with my wife and my kids and my wife's friend, and just checking the phone every couple minutes, and then Ravens are up 7-0. Check the phone again. 14-0. Okay. Check the phone again. Every time I check the phone, there's a touchdown. I kid you not. It was epic.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, like we were saying, adding Chris back off the IR really helped. I think that gave him the boost. It wasn't that they had a bunch of Ravens legends. It wasn't they were inducting Suggs. It was that Chris was in the building. He was wearing that fly hat he's wearing right now, and that is what elevated their game. They saw it, and they were like, that's it. But the thing that gets me about this game, this is like the number one thing you can say if you want to remember this game. Before the Lions could register a first down, we had scored 28 points. And it was the middle of the second quarter. Like that's how that game went for them. It was 3 and outs in a row, and each time we touched the ball, it was gold.
Yeah, and I'll admit too, because I remember definitely saying something to you, Alec, at the beginning, but it took a little bit, I think, for some things to start clicking as well. It's like I feel like I was a little nitpicky about the offense initially. I think that there were some throws there, or just like, oh man, like nobody's getting open. What the heck's going on? We only Lamar to scramble and get a couple of yards here or there, but I think eventually, like, they found their groove. I think the touchdown to Aguilar, I think, was just a vintage Lamar. I think it's just him buying time while things weren't working, and then finally something opened up through it. Great touchdown pass. But eventually, I think the offense, it shifted a little bit. Like, guys started finding their way open. I think things just became a lot easier. I think the running game also opened up as well, which we'll talk more about. But eventually we just hit a point where it's just like, okay, it seemed like Detroit almost rolled over, and then that was kind of game. So I mean, it was. I mean, shoot, man, like, it reminded me of some of those games from 2019 where it just felt like anything the Ravens wanted to do, like they were scoring. So great game. Certainly, it was something we've wanted to see this from the Monken offense. If we wanted to see Lamar with it, we know he can be accurate. We know he's been having a great start, probably the best start since 2019, his MVP season. But we just haven't seen this team put it all together. And this game, I think, was a great example of just things were all put together: offense, defense, special teams.
Let's also not forget, the Ravens did this against a team that's been doing very well to start the year. And despite this beatdown, I think it's still a real team. I don't think Detroit's a pretender. I think this was just a poor decision of a game plan by their standard, coming up against just everything that we did. It was top notch. Sometimes that happens even to the best teams. And I think certainly a team like Detroit, they're good, but they're young. So they're susceptible to having a misstep like this. But that's what makes this win even better, I think, that the Ravens were able to do this in a game they needed to show up, in a game that they needed to show, like, they have had some rocky games in this year against Pittsburgh, against the Colts. Even though Cincinnati, the final score really wasn't as close as it was, the Bengals still were within reach of that game. And maybe the Bengals are for real, maybe they're not. We don't know yet. But to have this big of a win against an opponent that looks like they're going to be a playoff team when the season is done. Still a lot of football to play, but I think if you're looking at it right now with what you know, that's a statement win, in my opinion. And you have wins like that be statement wins against good opponents. Those don't come too often in this league.
What's so interesting about this statement win is after the game, they weren't happy. You watch the presser, and Harbaugh's kind of like, just a regular season game. Lamar looked visibly upset in the post game. He got the lion spike or whatever, and he was still like sad. He was like ticked off about what it could have been. Harbaugh was yelling like, well, think about how much better it could have been. And they're all just like, they're striving for this excellence. And in a way, it's kind of great, right? You don't want, because like we're worried about trap games, worried about like, flip-flop performances. And by having this growth mindset of like, we want to keep improving, like that's not good enough yet, we need to keep improving. I do think that's obviously the way to go. You don't want to be like feeling yourself too much. So definitely a hungry team. And I feel like just overall, like there's just a little bit of a personality difference this year. I think everyone's just a little bit more like none of this actually matters. Like we just need to get better as a team so that if we can get into the playoffs, we are the best version of ourselves. That is the goal right now. Like wins have to happen as a byproduct of this attempt to be a better team. But like the true goal is be a better team every week. And like the wins will come, hopefully, and then the playoffs will come, and then hopefully we're the best team so we can actually do what we've been coming to do for the last couple of years and just haven't gotten it done. And I like that focus.
Yeah, it's a great focus. I mean, because like we're saying, it's only week 7, right? And you don't prove everything in week 7. You just got to look at this as a building block. And we've obviously talked about things throughout this season. There's been games this year where the Ravens have won, and we've opened up with here's the things that held them back from winning bigger, right? From making it a prettier win, so to speak. So it's good to see that the guys are holding themselves to a high standard, that they're not going to just sit around and feel great about the fact that they won this game by the score that they did, that they scored as many points as they did. Just stay hungry. Realize that this is a victory, but the prize is far off still. You still got a lot of games to go if you're going to go, all the way. So you love to see that. And I think that's a mark of a veteran team. It's another reason why you continue to keep John Harbaugh there, a coach who's been with the organization for over a decade and has experienced a ton of success. It's great to I really like to see that in the post game. To me, it shows that the team is in the right mindset for the long haul here and is chasing perfection, which is what you're going to have to do to get to the Super Bowl.
Let's dive into it a little bit just to throw out some stats. But I mean, like we're saying, as much as Lamar was kind of, being a little self-critical, but after the game, right, trying to focus on that growth mindset. Statistically, I think one of his best games. I mean, probably the best game at least since the Colts game, 2021, I believe. 21 of 27, 357 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, not to mention 9 carries, 36 yards. That's 4 yards a carry and a touchdown. He looked fantastic for most of the game, throwing, some great passes. I think that the pass to Zay over the middle early in the first quarter, I think was really reflective of just how far Lamar has come as a passer under Monken. Just a beautiful throw over the linebackers. I mean, Detroit's got some good young linebackers in there, and guys who can cover as well. I mean, if you look at the tape from the Tampa game the week before, I mean, guys like Campbell and Anzalone, I mean, they're all over the place in terms of pass coverage. They're flying around doing stuff. So, but I thought that pass was great. Just excellent amount of touch, be able to hit Zay over the middle, and have him get some yak afterwards. But Lamar's just been very, very accurate. I think there's only a couple throws I think that he's missed, or missed by a lot. But yeah, this was certainly a career day, I think, for him.
I mean, when you're just looking at quarterback rating alone, it was his highest rating since the Miami game in the beginning of 2019. Obviously, he's had some pretty big games since then. Okay, so actually, I think tied 158.3 was his career high, tied with the Miami game and against at Cincinnati that year. So I mean, yeah, it's was a near perfect game from him, which was great to see him get the statistical backing of it, right? Because we saw that PFF said after the Steelers game that Lamar had the highest rating by their metric of any quarterback that week. And I forget what stats Alec threw out there, but it was something obscene. Like if the wide receivers had caught the passes that they dropped, Lamar would have had 400 plus passing yards and 5 touchdowns or something incredible against the Steelers. So good to see, the offense finally be able to execute, right? When Lamar has those games. Now, sure, if we dig into it, we still want to see more from the wide receivers. Zay and Andrews did their thing. You had better games from Odell and Bateman this game. You had Gus Edwards catch a pass, and I mean, he had 80 yards on it. That was more, I think, the Lions' defensive breakdown than Gus, despite the fact that Gus ran hard on that play. But yeah, there's still room for growth in this passing game, even with as big a game as this was. I mean, heck, no receiver had a 100-yard game in this. So I think that it's a step in the right direction, a big one. But yeah, certainly room for improvement there.
Lamar is third in the league in quarterback rating right now, second in the league in completion percentage. Had another game, like you said, over 155, third time in his career as a QB rating. Tom Brady only had 3 of them in his whole long career with many, many rings. So just an incredible performance by Lamar. And I think, like you said, Peter, the ball was distributed around. All the primary suspects got a nice touch. Bateman had 2 catches and 3 plays, which was all his production for the day. But there was a 16-yarder and a 20-yarder, 2 first down conversions, one of which on third down. And he did some dirty work. He ran good routes to clear out the other guys. He had good blocks. He actually contributed in chip blocking when he was close to the tackles. And I think that was kind of what we were looking for. Obviously, we want to see it a little bit more throughout the game. But part of me thinks that because this game wasn't competitive, the game plan changed after the first 4 drives. It just absolutely did. There's a reason that they went into all right, let's just win this game now, right? It's more of a ball control, time of possession thing than a having to, just keep exposing the playbook and everything. But I liked what I saw out of Bateman. Aguilar only 1 catch, but that catch was a great connection. We talked about it for the touchdown. And then Zay had that huge catch that really got the bank rolling. It erupted. I heard that somebody was still going to their seat at that point, and they thought it was a touchdown because of how loud everyone was. But it was just a big gain, and it's what you want to see. And of course, Mark Andrews on tight end day. The reason why Zay was so open, they all pounced on him. They thought the ball was going to him. No, he had a monster game with 2 touchdowns. So seeing that was really encouraging. Odell, we didn't even talk about him. He had a bunch of catches, chain moving, looking healthier. He's still searching for that touchdown. He was pretty close, didn't quite make it. But the whole group it was the exact opposite of the Steelers game, right? They caught the balls that were thrown to them and they succeeded. It's they had their best game ever. Let's be honest, right? This game was so well executed. It probably won't be that pretty every time. Even if they get better, it won't be that pretty. And it'll probably never be more disgusting than it wasn't the Steelers. So we probably have now seen the maximums on either side as far as absolute efficiency.
Yeah, and actually another guy to mention about catching the ball, Pat Ricard, man. I think he had the longest catch of his career.
He did, yeah.
I think in this game, yeah, it was incredible also to see him get involved. But yeah, I mean, it was just a game where everything went right. I think for the Ravens, I think guys were catching the ball in key situations, getting open, getting touchdowns. It was just. I feel like there's not too much to nitpick here. Maybe the only thing is ball control. There was the one fumble, Justice Hill, the botched mesh point, I guess, between Hill and Jackson, which ended up getting the ball back to the Lions. I think that was probably another scoring drive that would have happened
right.
If that fumble wasn't made. So there's some little things in there you want to clean up, but yeah, it was certainly it. I think you kind of said it earlier, Peter. It seemed like it was a situation where maybe Detroit was expecting something else, and it did not happen, and they did not adjust. And or by the time they did adjust, it was too late. Going into halftime, 28-0. So, I think it's hard for any team to come back from that deficit. So, although not impossible, it has happened.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, so we had Glover on, Glover Quinn, All-Pro safety, or I should say former All-Pro. He's retired now. If you didn't get a chance to listen to that, you should definitely check it out. It was a fun episode, unique experience to be able to interview a former NFL player about the game going in. And he had a lot of insightful comments to say about the game, in my opinion. But, I think something that he did say that surprised me a little bit, but makes sense to a degree, was it really didn't seem from his perspective. Now, I think he also admitted that he doesn't follow teams outside of the Lions as closely as, maybe some of us would expect an ex-pro to do. But he did have to ask us if Mark Andrews was still on the Ravens after all. But
he was reminded.
Yes. Yeah. I think he's going to even remembers now. Might have gotten him up in the middle of the night last night. Mark Andrews caught another touchdown. But anyways, we kid. Glover was great. He was absolutely great to have on the program. Incredible what him coming in and being great for us. But I was really a little surprised for him to really say like, hey, there's no one, in his opinion, catching the ball for the Ravens that Detroit should be concerned about going into the matchup. They should. Lamar concerned him as someone who's not in the Lions organization right now, but as someone who covers the team. But he said he didn't think that the receivers was going to be an issue for the Lions secondary, if I read what he was saying correctly. And maybe it's possible that the Lions coaching staff felt that way as well, because it certainly seemed that was the game plan. It was just stop Lamar, just get after him, and if it gets behind him, okay, we can deal with that. Well, it turns out they couldn't, though, because the Ravens, once they got the ball, plenty of space for yak yards. The Ricard play like we're talking about, that should not have happened. It was great to see. I love seeing it. You always love to see it when Ricard gets a big catch like that, but that's inexcusable for an NFL defense to let that happen. To let Gus Edwards get that 80-yard run. I don't think there was one contested catch that the Ravens receiver had to make in that game yesterday. And maybe I'm wrong about that, but if there were, they're few and far between, because they're not any that really stick out. Everything was nice and easy, just catch it in the zone and run. And it just seemed to me like that was a gross miscalculation by Aaron Glenn and the Lions coaching staff. Not saying that was the only reason that the Ravens offense was able to execute. I think they still would have executed if the Lions were a bit more aggressive in coverage, but it certainly made things a lot easier.
Well, Peter, let's go into a little bit of the scheme and observations from the game from the offensive perspective, because I do think that the scheme was different this game, and you can look at just the snap counts to figure this out. Beloved Zay Flowers, less snaps than normal. He had 72% of snaps in this game, and he's been in the high 90s recently. Mark Andrews actually had a little bit less snaps too, which was somewhat interesting. But Ricard, Likely, and Kohler, 40, 35, and 18% respectively. There was a little bit of garbage time, but that was only 3 snaps, so I'm not going to worry about that. What I saw was that they were passing out of heavier personnel a little bit more often than before. And what I also saw from a Lions perspective is they were playing their safeties up close. So they were trying to protect against the run. And we were like, no, we're actually going to pass all over you. And because of this, they weren't able to get the pass rush going because they were always trying to be ready for the run and not overcommit in that way. But also they had their safeties down, and we would just go over top, or we would be able to find soft spots. And we got a lot of intermediate to longer passes completed because of it. A lot of 15 plus yard completions. And that is huge. Being able to run and pass out of heavier personnel is the dream we've been talking about since 2 years ago. Right. And I felt like they actually did it this game. They actually really committed to breaking some tendencies too. On that Lamar touchdown run, They motion Ricard, they go to the opposite side. Everyone bit. No one had any pay attention to Lamar. They were so convinced that we were going to just go behind him. They thought it was a handoff, that he was wide open. Then you see Stanley road grade all the way out, saying inspiring his inner Yonda.
Loved that.
That defender. And that wasn't it. Another great play by Stanley is that, I don't know, I noticed that game, but I didn't quite notice where everyone was lined up. When I rewatched, I remember they announced somebody was as eligible. And it was
Stanley.
Yep. He was a tight end. So, he was a tight end on the running back, or the Gus Edwards running touchdown. And I thought that it was just a lot of creative play calling, and also just great execution by the line, and also some of the skill players to be able to pull off, just making it look so easy. It wasn't easy. It was good play calls. Sometimes like Lamar evading for a million seconds and having, I think, 9 seconds till he threw it to Aguilar. That's that's not in the playbook exactly. But but it was really well played. And then Andrew's just being him, getting those catches, going over top. He definitely had the most contested catches of the game, but like you said, we're so used to it from him that of course he's going to come down with it. He's just a guy, and it was National Tight End Day. He wasn't going to mess around.
Yeah, I think you're onto something though, because at least from what I remember early on in the game is that I think if the defense of Detroit, if they knew what was coming, those guys can cover. I think that there are plenty of plays, particularly I'm thinking in the first quarter, where the Ravens were kind of in obvious passing situations, and guys were just having trouble getting open, right? And I think you're right, Alec. It wasn't until later where they're trying to figure out we're gonna try doing this out of a different personnel group, try to show something we haven't seen before. That's when you really got those breakdown and coverages of guys not being in the right spot, and it's not from talent, right? Because I think the first part is just, you can see these guys can cover. If they know what's coming, they can cover guys. Mm-hmm. But I think that really, I think the misdirection is exactly, the point here of they really had a lot of success for it. And it makes sense too, right? Being a younger defense, a lot of young guys on that roster, particularly in the linebacker group. I mean, just think 2019, right? 2020 with, some of these linebacker groups that really, that the Ravens were rolling out, had a lot of trouble on being able to cover in passing situations. And why? Well, we know our linebackers have speed. We've always talked about how Patrick Queen having a ton of speed, but not having the play recognition in his younger years, right? And so I think maybe for Detroit that may have been an element here as well. Just having a really young team, not really experienced, not knowing exactly what the Ravens want to do. And taking advantage of that.
I think you're really hitting on something really good there too. And what is that? That's in-game adjustments. That's what we've been really, wanted to see more of with this team. I think we saw it more. We've been seeing it more this year than we had in some previous years. But this was one of those games where we saw it work, and we saw it work in a big way. Was part of that because Detroit failed to adjust and we adjusted? I mean, sure, maybe, but still, they did the right thing, and we got a big amount of offensive production out of it. So that was great to see. And, I think the scheme is definitely part of it, but I think we also have to look at the offensive line. Was the production perfect today? No, but I think overall you saw a very good performance by the offensive line. And again, this is a unit that a couple weeks ago we had a lot of things to say about things that need to be fixed. I'm not saying everything was fixed, but I think this performance, something that might go overlooked with a game where he had all these big plays and a lot of Lamar having to make things happen on his own, it was a step in the positive direction for the offensive line this week.
Certainly had the time to make some of these plays and get the longer developing routes, better in pass protection. And I think because of that, the running game benefited too. But I think it all started with the pass. I really do. I think our ability to have such a successful passing game and the looks we were doing, I think it really slowed down their linebackers. And of course, all the uncalled holds, as the people around us were mentioning like crazy.
I was hoping you're going to bring that up. Yeah.
I mean, look, I think there was a couple things going on. My understanding is the broadcast did talk about uncalled holds. And I'm not saying that there wasn't some of that, but I think actually what really messed with them is like I was saying, we chipped a lot. Like we were sacrificing some of our passing upside, despite what the numbers showed, by chipping and having guys stay around. Great chipping too. I saw one by Hill. Excellent. I mentioned the one about Bateman. Good. And then your typical suspects, your tight ends did a good job as well. And I just think that's a heavy part of it, guys. And that triple option play, second play of the game or whatever it was, to Odell, where they like had Zay cross the formation, faked the handoff to whoever the running back was. Lamar looks like he's running, and then he throws it like as the linebackers are trying to rally, he just throws it right over their head to OBJ. I was like, well, that's a beautiful play. I'm sure we're going to see a lot more of that. And but they waited till this game to kind of break it out. But I feel like that's going to be a signature kind of play. Because why wouldn't it be? You can't win. It's a really hard play to beat.
So much we could talk about more with this offense. It was just great to see this explosion. I mean, gosh, we've been talking about it with Glover, right? When was the last time the Ravens scored over 30? It had been a while. It was his first time this year, right? We hadn't scored 30 points in a game.
Right.
Might have been the first time since the Patriots game last year. It'd been a bit, but defense too. Defense had a great game here. Now, of course, David Montgomery was out for the Lions. I think that did hurt them. Jared Goff, while he's having a little bit of a career resurgence in Detroit, he's still a guy, and we talked about in the preview, like he's going to be at his best when that offense is on track, and that offense needs a consistent running game to get that going. And Jahmyr Gibbs, we liked him coming out of college. He had a great game, but he's not the basher that Montgomery is. I think the injury to Montgomery really hurt what they had to do. But still, I don't think that you can take away that the front seven, I mean, they just took whatever running game potential there was in this game for the Lions and just slammed the door shut on it and forced Goff to try and do everything by himself. And I think that right there was the foundation for the defensive performance you had on Sunday.
I mean, it was great. It was one of those two where it's just like it felt like it didn't really take that much to get the defense going, right? It was a couple of 3-and-outs, and really, like, it's not so bad, but if the other defense can get off the field, right? But that was the key of like both phases. I think we're playing so well that all of a sudden, 2 3-and-outs, 3 3-and-outs, now 4 3-and-outs. Oh crap! Now you're down 28-0. Obviously, that becomes a lot harder to come back. And I mean that like you were saying, Peter, I think that played right in the Ravens' hands of like, okay, now you're forcing Goff to be able to take a significant amount of snaps, having to put him in these obvious passing situations where he's not comfortable. And sure, I mean, I think. The only thing you can nitpick with is that the Ravens did let up a touchdown at the very end, and it was rushing touchdown to Gibbs. And yeah, it was well blocked. I gave the Lions fan behind me. I was just like, yeah, that was a good play, but a little late, I think. But even if you take that away, I think game plan wise, you couldn't have schemed it up any better. It was exactly the situation the Ravens wanted to be in. And yeah, like you said, the front seven, I think is a huge part of that. Putting consistent pressure on the quarterback. I think that is, probably the position group this year. I feel like is the biggest step up from last year. And it's funny because I know even when Calais, unfortunately, he left and to go to the Falcons, but he was like, these guys behind me are so good. I don't need to be here, right? I feel like I don't really have a role anymore. And
EDC listened.
Yeah, I mean,
you're cut.
I mean, I guess when I heard it from him originally, I'm like, I get it, but like also like, Madubuike was like having like, inconsistent. Washington, he's like, okay, yeah, like he'll make some plays and everything, and Jones is a rookie, so we're like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, but this year. I mean, just the consistent pressure that we're able to get to with 4 guys like is incredible. I mean, we don't have to bring the house like we did, with these defenses under Wink to be able to get pressure. We can generate it with a front 4, with the outside linebackers that we have. I mean, it's just incredible. I think that really is one of the biggest difference to this defense this year.
NFL leaders in sacks, 29 in the first 7 weeks, 5 in this game. Could have been 6 if Goff didn't intentionally ground. Matt BK is like, darn it, that was another million. We got another sack. Fun fact, slot cornerbacks, 6 sacks this year and 30 attempts. Saw that in Kevin Cusick's article. Unbelievable efficiency. Millette had another one in this game. And I mean, it was a very impressive performance from a pass rushing perspective. Owe in his first game back, very great performance. Not only did he get a sack, a forced fumble, and a holding penalty to draw a 4th down, kind of made him punt right afterwards because it was too far. Just an incredible game. He ate up snaps, which was huge because Clowney didn't have to play as much. Van Noy, of course, like Tavius Robinson took a much bigger step back, but still had contributions in this game. That was great. Like we need another guy. It's like the Orioles being like, we got a 6-man rotation now. Like that was really important for our pitchers down the stretch. Like we need a guy just to take some innings, like take some snaps. Like and of course, like Owe playing at such a high level. Hate that he had that setback in week 2, but I think he's going to be a huge asset for this team, and I'm thinking he's working his way towards of an accepted 5th-year option or some kind of attempt to extend. If they don't accept this 5th-year option, I think it's because they want to do a different kind of contract structure, kind of similar to what they were saying with Queen. But I think he's playing up to the potential, and it's really just like so excellent to see. Like it's what you need, man. Like you're saying, oh, they're winning with 4. You know what people who win with 4 do? They win Super Bowls. It's like a prerequisite. You don't win Super Bowls unless you can win with 4. So we have it. It's like, it doesn't mean we're going to win, but it doesn't mean we're not going to win. Like we have a prereq that's super important, and it gets you excited. It could be a very special group.
Oh, wait. Yeah. Great game. Great spotlight on him. Matabike just continues to be a game record this year. Tied for 9th in the league in sacks right now. That's from an interior lineman. That's something special. Just playing with a high motor these past couple of weeks, just really great play. And another guy, week in and week out, Roquan Smith, man, just another great game on Sunday. An excellent play early in the 3rd quarter. Now, I mean, I know the Ravens are already up 4 scores, but you didn't want to give the Lions any life at all, of course, right? You never want to do that in that point. To strip the ball away on that potential touchdown there in the back of the end zone, that was excellent. And then Geno Smith continuing to step up with Marcus Williams, trying to figure out when he's going to be at full strength to be able to come back and contribute to this defense at the all-pro level that we all know he can when he's healthy. Had another pick. He's up there. He might be tied for the league lead in interceptions. Dan.
Geno Smith, we'll see in 2 weeks.
Did I say Geno Smith? Man, Geno Smith.
I've done it before too. I just had to get you.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think we've told the story before where you got me confused because remember that when we were doing the draft preview episode, I earmarked Geno Stone as a potential late round safety that the Ravens might want to take a look at, and then we drafted him. And I would come back from a bike ride, check my phone, and I saw your message like, "We got Geno Smith." And I was like, Lamar, why did we? First off, why did we get that? And why are you excited about it? And I was like, oh no, Geno Stone. That's it. But yeah, I mean, you just got so many guys stepping up on this defense, and we're highlighting a different guy every week. It feels like, Vanoy got a sack. He was in there. Clowney just week in and week out. He's an impact player. Sometimes it shows up on the stat sheet. Other times it doesn't, but you watch the tape and he's always disrupting every weekend in and out. So this defense is just so much fun to talk about. And every year the Ravens have a good defense. This has been one of the more fun units that I can remember in quite some time, really.
This is like a Chuck Pagano level defense, I think.
I think you're right.
That's the one it reminds me of.
I think you're right. Yeah. Not really a true star, so to speak, as far as, like the majority of the plays are being made by one guy. Of course we have stars. Roquan's a star. Marlon's a star. But like every week, multiple guys are making plays. You're getting plays from every single guy who's lining up. And it's just making this unit very fluid in what it can attack and what it can take away from another team. I'm really excited to see this unit down the stretch when weather starts getting cold, because we know that's when Ravens defenses are really at their best, when they play really well in that bully ball, that cold weather games in the AFC North and elsewhere. When you have those environments, man, a lot of good signs from this unit, a lot of good signs, and really giving the offense lots of time to get on track with this new scheme, such that, I mean, man, second half of the year, these games that we're seeing here, this 38-6, this could become the norm again. It's certainly possible. It's only one game, so I don't want to say we're there, but once the offense gets footing, the defense is there, and we could see this team really put on some dominant streaks.
Yeah, defense definitely is there. I mean, shoot, man, it's just like there just doesn't seem to be a weak spot. Like, it's not from being like overconfident, but it's just from like from a roster construction of this defense and like the way they're being coached right now and just the level of talent they have on that side of the ball. It's just, we talked a lot about how, cornerback was a problem group. It's not a problem now. And that was before Marlowe, he wasn't playing, he was hurt. And now that he's back, it's like, okay, you've got Marlowe and Stevens playing incredible. And then you have these other corners that are, at this point, rotation. We thought that they were going to have to be our 2 and 3 guys all the time. But, Darby and Rock and Millette are, having an impact in their kind of reduced rotation. But they're not being picked on, right? It's not a roster where you're like, okay, you have to go after them. It's like, no, they can hold up fairly well. As long as you don't have a mismatch, I think with like Millette and Hopkins, I think that was probably a mismatch, but not every team has a Hopkins. So, but yeah, shoot, I want to talk more about Rowe though. I feel like it was a great game. I think obviously with the Ring of Honor ceremony for Terrell Suggs, I think that was super special. I think the defense wanted to show off for him a little bit. But I tell you, man, Rowe, oh man, he is really the heir apparent to those defenses back in the day with Ray and Sis and Ed and everybody. I mean, I loved his post game comments after about how he told everybody in security, he's like, I'll tell, lock the doors. I'll tell you when we're gonna let him out. Like, oh my god, like. I just, man, it just makes me happy. It reminds me back of the defense of the day where you had the swagger, you had guys talking up shit, and and they backed it up. That was the number one thing, they could back it up, and Rowe's got these guys playing just at a really high level. I know it's obviously not just him. There's a lot of people playing really well, and the defensive coordinator is also doing a fantastic job. But I mean, just to have a little bit of swag on top of everything, it's just. Chef's kiss. It's great.
The thing that's really good about this defense, in my opinion, is, and I think the reason why the Lions look so anemic against us, for what it's worth. I wish I put this together. It made me sound real smart around Glover, but it was like kind of like what I realized thinking about their personnel and like actually seeing it happen. They do a lot of. Amon-Ra St. Brown's like one of the best like slot possession receivers in the game, but for him to be like particularly effective, you got to not be great at tackling. And you need to like let him create a little bit after the catch, right? His depth of target's not very high. Well, we're one of the best tackling teams and like rallying to the ball I've seen in a long, long time. Like that's like honestly our key thing. We rally to the ball so well, we play these zones so well that like even if a guy's open, they're not. like there's a guy going to be right there. They're going to tackle him. They're not going to get much yak, and I think that really hurt them. We were really good about keeping Gibbs in check. He had a couple big plays. That touchdown, I think that's why they were mostly pissed. I think the whole defense, the second they scored a touchdown, they're like, we were supposed to get a shutout. Like they were like so mad. And like they did. In our hearts, they did. It was like garbage time. There were so many people had left by then, but
yep.
They were like, darn it, we let it up. Like that, I think that really like broke their backs. They were really pissed off about that. That's great. Because that's like always, a big thing for defense. They love to see a shutout, particularly against an offense that was so heavily heralded. And of course, the big thing too is like the amount of pressure we were able to generate. And some of these guys, Travis Jones, 4 pressures and a QB hit. That doesn't really show up on the stat sheet unless you have a good one with pressures and QB hits, right? But like he was all over the place. And the Van Noy, he had 5 total pressures and 2 sacks. Matabika, we talked about, had 5 pressures. Like the amount of pressure was incredible. And Goff wasn't playing well under pressure. He really regressed. And you see Stone with the interception. And I put the joke in here. Williams never said it, but they brought in Earl. And he was like, why am I here? We have Chuck Clark. They brought in Williams and he never said, but it's like, why are you here? We have Stone. Obviously, I want to see them both on the field. That's great. But like Stone's playing at that kind of level, man. It's so nice. And then Brandon Stevens, number 1 snap guy. They kind of retired the offense eventually. That was Stone. Stone played all the snaps. But Stevens, again, just a huge presence, 2 pass deflections, almost got a pick. He was mad about that. I mean, shoot. 2 and 6 on 4th downs. I think that's my only nit, by the way, for the offense. Should do a little bit more with those failed 4th downs. Make them really pay. But yeah, I mean that this defense is going to be one of the defenses we talk about for a long time, guaranteed. They are a defense that people see on the stat sheet. Ooh, they're the 2nd best or the 3rd best defense in the league, or whatever the stats are saying. But they play a little bit different than like a typical good defense. They're playing like a dominant defense. They're playing with swagger, the top in sacks. I think they're a little like they're a special top defense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean they definitely got. I mean, they're going to have the pieces to continue to play really well, especially against like all these top teams, right? I think a lot of people, I think, and I think there are good reasons for saying, but I think a lot of people are saying, the Browns defense is one of the top defenses in the league. And I think statistically for the first couple of weeks, I think they were very good. They've got a lot of talent on that roster as well. And defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz is having them play really, really well. I don't think the roster was necessarily the problem in years past with them. Like, I think they've drafted fairly well. They just haven't had guys playing at the level. Well, they are now. But, I feel like this week, with a week like this where, the Ravens, defense plays so well against a very top offense in Detroit. And then you look over on the Brown side and you let up almost 40 points to the Colts with their backup quarterback, 2 rushing touchdowns to Gardner Minshew of all people, doesn't look as good, and, obviously just say Ravens didn't look so good against the Colts either, or the Steelers for that matter. But I don't think those games were lost by our defense. I think
right.
They're lost for other reasons, but yeah, anyway, definitely when I was thinking back of just I feel like the Chuck Pagano defenses, I feel like that, at least those years in particular, to me, I think were very special. Obviously, we didn't win it all those years, but I think those years, man, I think that it was just a very special year. Obviously, a lot of people played really well, and that was the defensive player of the year, Suggs, right? That was the year he got that. So, but that was one that really I kind of look at here, and I'm like, yeah, you've got the talent at all positions right now. They're playing really well. They're coaching really well. We just gotta hope that they put it all together, continue to put it all together throughout the rest of the season, and like we're saying at the top, continue to build, continue to get better every week. Wins will come.
On that note, I guess we want to jump into the MVP section, which, I mean, isn't really a section this week because the MVP is every single player who put on a Ravens helmet and went out on the field that game. I mean, that's literally what it is. So I guess we'll call this section guy we want to highlight who had a really good game in particular. And I guess I'll go first. And, like we said, so many guys that we could throw out in this, but and I just got to do it to the guy who apparently disappeared a little bit from the public eye because people were forgetting that he was on the team. But week in and week out, he's just come in and is doing his thing. He had 2 touchdown grabs. Just give it to Mark Andrews here. Like we're saying, people remember he's on the Ravens now. That's for sure.
Because of Mark Andrews and a couple other players in my roster, I didn't even field a quarterback this week. I beat Alec by 10 points in Sleeper.
I know.
Sheesh.
Yeah, that was sincere pain.
Is that the league where Alec has Dobbs as one of his quarterbacks?
Yeah.
Dobbs
So-
and
So you didn't field any quarterbacks, but Alec only fielded one. So
yeah. It's tough sledding, man, in that league. It's tough sledding. It's
my team
also,
didn't do terribly great either. I think I need Ayuk to have like 30 points tonight or something ridiculous.
I think he got a touchdown, but yeah, it's definitely tough, guys. It's tough, but I'm happy to give Chris that win. He's a 2-time champion in that league right now, so he's trying to go to 3-peat.
It's got a star. Remember last year? That was it was a little weird with the Damar Hamlin situation.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, still quite good.
Yeah.
For me, I'm going to give my MVP to a person that did not put on a uniform, but instead put on a hoodie. I'm going to say you got to give props. You got to give props to Munkin, man. He was up there high-fiving. He called it a beautiful game. And I hear, he got a game ball. And I also hear he cussed a lot. But then in the Ravens Productions, post-game thing, he was like, credit to the players, credit to the coaches, great team win. I was like, oh man, I want the uncut, like OnlyFans version of Todd Munkin just cursing away. Like this is too censored. I need it unbridled Todd Munkin. Yeah, he's my MVP.
Nice. Oh man. So many. I could go Lamar. I could go Rowe. I could go BK. You know what? I'll say this. Yeah, we're gonna go a little off the rails. You know who I was excited to see play? Keaton Mitchell. Alec, I think you called it. The first play he was in, he didn't get the ball, but he was a decoy. I think it was a 10-yard game, and he got the ball a little bit later, and he got a nice carry for 9 yards. We'll see about his health. He tweaked his hamstring a little bit. We'll see. He'll be back eventually, but we can't wait to kind of see him, man. Obviously, Gus is great. Justice Hill is great once he holds the ball. So then he fixed the fumbling issues. But Keaton's got that speed, man. Got that extra speed in the run game that we could really use, especially to complement with Hill. So hopefully he comes back. He's healthy because we want to see more of him.
Indeed. Could be another great piece of the puzzle. We're looking at this Ravens team, just a lot of players contributing. It's coming from all over. It's a roster that's deep, and they're all contributors. And I think that's the biggest thing. See it on defense, we see it on offense. Everyone's participating. Everyone's getting a part of the glory. It's not leaning on necessarily one star here, one star there. Total team, and just like I think that's why you're seeing the buy-in. Everyone's getting to participate a little bit. Everyone's getting a little bit of the pie, and this is a fun team, guys. This is a fun team. Definitely getting some vibes, getting good vibes. Let's just keep riding it. Guys, we got a big game in Arizona. You might look at them and be like, oh, they're 1-6. Well, Cowboys would like to tell you something about that one. And they're a good team. They're, there's reason to see potential there. So we gotta prepare for them, and we had a great guest lined up. You'll hear it later in the week. Ed Smith. Talk to him, learn a bit more about what the Cardinals are doing. Former NFL tight end, great guest, lots of fun insights, and hear more about that young up-and-coming team. Find us on One Winning Pod at Twitter, One Winning Pod on Threads, onewinningpod@gmail.com for the email. Go Ravens. We'll talk to you later in the week.